a record score for Scotland as they average more than a pint a minute against a hapless USA side. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Clinical performance from Scotland in this one. Obviously question marks about the quality of the opposition, but you can only play what is put in front of you, and Scotland did that very well. So they're over early on. Dempsey off the back of a strong 5-meter scrum, recycled, and Richardson is over to score. That's converted for 7 points to nil. They score again from turnover ball. Dobie goes to debutant McConnell. He marauds down the wing before giving a lovely one-handed offload back inside to Duhan van der Merwe, convert for 14 points to nil. They're in for the third as they go wide into 22. Hastings with a long pass out to Darcy Graham, who has space to scamper over in the right corner, converted for 21 points to nil. USA then go to the corner from a penalty. Rare attack for them. They go to the maul going forward, but Scotland have gotten in and they're able to disrupt it, make it unplayable, turn over. USA then have a period in possession, but when Scotland get their hands on the ball again, Dobie chips over the defence. Graham collects it and then puts Dobie under the post, converted for 28-0. Scotland in again off a line out. They move it right to left. They go to van der Merwe, who just bounces off Fricker over to score. Conversion missed, 33 points to nil. McDowell then through a gap and he puts Dobie under the post, converted for 40-0. Scotland then steal the ball from USA, defensive 5-meter line out, lovely hands, and they spread it to the opposite wing, and Graham over for his second, 45-0. That was the halftime score. And generally, second half of games like this, you would expect that it would slow down a bit for Scotland. Maybe USA are going to get on the board, but Scotland just keep going. Into the second half, Rowe claims a high ball, gives it to Graham to initiate a counter-attack. He then gives it inside to Smith, who returns it out to him, and over he goes for his hat-trick try. Conversion missed, 50 points to nil. Graham at that stage then at the top of the try-scoring charts with van der Merwe for Scotland, and that's going to be something I think over this November may switch between those two again, but great to see that kind of competition for them too. Then we do have a bit of disruption from a number of substitutions before Scotland get back into that groove. They attack out for scrum. They go to Witt. Dobie now operating out on the wing. He gives it back inside for Rowe to go over, converted for 57-0. We then have a crazy period of play. McConnell breaks up the middle. He's been brilliant this season in the URC and just bringing that same form onto his debut for Scotland as well. He goes to the offload. It goes to deck. USA turn the ball over. Then the Petty with just an outrageous behind the back pass. They're attacking up the right wing. They get stopped just short. Then they decide they're going to go for the cross kick, but Dobie does well to force a knock on. Rare, moment of danger from USA, but they couldn't produce a score from it. McConnell then breaks again. He bounces a tackler. He's got Horn outside, and if he just gives the pass, they're in again. He decides so he's going to go for it himself. He does get by one defender, but he can't get by the next one, and it peters out from there. Then have nice hands again as McDowell goes over for Scotland from close range, convert for 64-0. Van der Merwe then breaks, combines with Rowe, and Rowe then sends Horn over, convert for 71 points to nil. Dobie completes his hat-trick right at the death, and right at the exact time as well that he is announced as the player of the match, converted for 78 points to nil. There's still, though, a minute or two left on the clock and time for Smith to get over for the final score, the 13th try that Scotland get. That's converted for 85 points to nil, full-time score. Yeah, so more than a point a minute from Scotland. And yeah, there was very little from the USA. And you think like, they're going to be hosts of not the next World Cup, the World Cup after that. So 6 years' time, they're going to be World Cup hosts, and they've got a lot of work to do to be anywhere near competitive. Nobody, home World Cup or not, nobody will expect them at this stage, at least, to get out of their pool. But you have to look like, Japan, hosted in 2019. They beat Ireland in the pool, and Scotland as well, managed to get out of that pool themselves. But, I think 6 years before that, they certainly looked a better side than this USA side did. So a lot of work for them to do, even to be, right now you're thinking, are they going to finish bottom of their World Cup pool in that World Cup? That's how poor they've been tonight. Scotland, on the other hand, really good professional performance from them. Some really nice hands. Obviously building a lot of confidence in that team. They're going to need that going into the All Blacks next week. Obviously going to be very different game from them there as well. They're going to have to dig a lot in that game. And it's going to have to be a case of like every single point's going to count. They have to take every chance that they make in that game as well to have any even inkling of beating the All Blacks for the first time. And that's why, things like McConnell, as I said, absolutely outstanding in this game. And he's been like, brilliant so far this season. But stuff like that thing where he decides to go himself and they don't score a try, doesn't seem all that much in a game like this. Do that against the All Blacks, that could be the difference. If you have a really good performance, the difference between winning and losing the game. So, that would be maybe one of the work-ons, and certainly somebody's going to have to talk to him about that. Even though he did have a fantastic debut, let's not take that away from him. But still, whether it's against the USA or it's against New Zealand, you still have to just do those basics. You've got like a 2-on-1. You're the ball carrier. You draw the defender. You give the pass. Your team is over for another score, and you come out looking better. Yes, you don't get a try out of it, but still, it's a tick in the box for you. But a positive thing I think from Scotland is the fact that they kept the foot on the throat. A lot of time you'll see it. Teams like Scotland, I put Ireland certainly in the same category as well. And a few others around that kind of level. I'd say maybe like at the moment Australia too, where they're against a team like this. You get into that second half, and there's that kind of temptation to kind of round about the 60-minute mark, slacken off a little bit, and then the opposition get a couple of tries. You maybe don't get a couple of scores yourself. And instead of it being 85-0, maybe it ends up like 60-something to 14 or 19 or something like that, right? And although it's still a big win, it's this is very different. I think 85-0, they just kept going the whole way through. And, we don't see that from Scotland enough. But, they've got to be able to reproduce that in games against the likes of the All Blacks or like even Ireland, they haven't beaten in a while. South Africa, those kind of teams, they've got to step up from there. So although a really good performance, and really can have no complaints about how they've done here. Also, you have to think about how much does it tell you about where they are. We're going to learn a lot more about where Scotland stand, in the overall kind of World Rugby standings next week when they take on the All Blacks. This is going to be a huge shot in the arm for them. Everybody's going to be buzzing all the way through the week, so it's going to make that build up even more special for them. But now, whether they win or lose next week, the challenge now is produce a performance next week that you can absolutely be proud of. Don't go into your shell the way you've done in other major games, and almost like sometimes in those kind of games with Scotland, it feels like they're beaten without really taking a shot. Like, just give it a go next week and see where it goes from there. But brilliant performances said this week, and just going to be like full of beans in the week to come.